Good morning, good people, brothers, sisters, and beautifully defiant siblings in the movement. Welcome to the unapologetic voice of labor, equity, and action. This is CWA Our Power radio show, where we amplify the organizers, uplift the everyday workers, and honor the giants whose shoulders we stand on. Right here on KYOK 1140 AM and 106.5 FM in the heart of Houston, Texas. If you're rolling through H-Town or just fired up anywhere in the world, stream us live at kyokradio.org on the CWA Strong app or catch the replay anytime by searching CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast platform, because this space, this time, it's about us. That's right, it's about us. We're talking union contracts, organizing victories, labor rights, human dignity, fair pay, and bold everyday resistance to injustice in all its forms. So whether you're on the job, in your car, at the kitchen table, or deep in the fight, lean in. Honk your horns if you stand with workers. Throw a fist up if you know your worth. Joining me today are the fire starters and truth tellers, Mikeya Jones, Reginald Small, Timmia Wiley, Tay Akins, and David Marshall. So buckle up, beloveds, because the power we build together, that power is ours. Let's get into it. Our union voices are ringing in every district, from Alaska to Maine, Texas to Minnesota, Canada to Puerto Rico, because we don't play at CWA. Women's History Month is more than a calendar recognition. It is her story. It is the untold, undertold, and sometimes deliberately erased contributions of women who built movements, shaped labor, protected families, and shifted power in this country. Her story is not just about first, it's about force, it's about foundation, it's about the women who organized when wages were unfair, who negotiated when systems resisted, who showed up in the union halls, the courtrooms, classrooms, fields, hospitals, and city councils, and demanded change. Women have always been at the center of labor, fighting for minimum wage, fighting for workplace protections, fighting for equal pay, fighting for dignity on the job. And this month, we don't whisper their names. We amplify them, because when women rise, workers rise. When women organize, communities stabilize. When women lead, power shifts. This is Women's History Month. This is her story. And today, we spotlight by way of Tay Akins.
All right, thank you, Errol. So we will get into our spotlight here today. Today we are spotlighting. This week we continue honoring her story, and this one is rooted directly in labor. Dolores Huerta, and you all, I can't roll that R, but respectfully, co-founder of the United Farm Workers. But don't reduce her to a footnote behind Cesar Chavez. Dolores negotiated contracts, she built organizing strategies, she railed, she rallied workers who were invisible to the system, farm workers. Many of them women were underpaid, overworked, exposed to toxic pesticides, and Dolores said enough. She organized strikes, she led boycotts. She demanded safer working conditions. She demanded dignity. That's woman's power. She gave us the phrase, "Si se puede." Yes, we can. That phrase didn't come from comfort, it came from struggle. Labor movements survive because of women who organize. They build community. They sustain momentum. Her story teaches us that economic justice is not optional, it is survival. Dolores Huerta was beaten by police during a peaceful protest in 1988. She suffered broken ribs and she came back to the movement. Because when women lead, they don't fold under pressure, they multiply power. Let me say this clear. Women are not just participants in the labor history. Women are women are architects of labor, I'm sorry, of labor power. The Women's History Month, we did not just remember, we recognize. Her story is organizing. This is Tay sitting in for Mikeya here today, but we wanted to spotlight Dolores. Back to
Now
you.
we just heard. All right, thank you, Tate. And we just heard about the strength and the strategy of the sacrifice of Dolores Huerta, a woman who helped build one of the most important labor movements in this country. But family, we've got to talk just for real, just for a few moments, because when you look at it, her story isn't always neat. It's not always clean. And sometimes it includes truths that are difficult, even inside movements built to fight injustice. And yesterday, at nearly 96 years old, Dolores Huerta shared something she carried privately for decades. She spoke about experiences of manipulation and sexual violence during the early years of the movement. And we want to handle this conversation with care and respect. And we're not here to tear down a movement, we're here to acknowledge truth and the courage it takes to speak about it. And Tay, I want to bring you back in.
First, Errol, I want to say that was a powerful statement. That is a very powerful statement, and I want that to sit with a few people just for a little bit. This is not to tear down a movement, but we will talk about how brave Dolores is. We just heard about the strength, the strategy, and the sacrifices of Dolores Huerta, a woman who helped build one of the most important labor movements in this country. But family, real talk for a moment. Her story isn't always neat. Sometimes it includes truths that are difficult, even inside movements built to fight injustice. Yesterday, at nearly 96 years old, Dolores shared something she carried probably for decades. She spoke about experience, she spoke about the manipulation, the violence, and that's including Cesar Chavez during the early years of the movement. We want to handle, like Errol said, this conversation, we want to handle it with care. So again, thank you, Errol. What stood out to me is the courage it takes to speak your truth, especially when you helped build something that changed history. Dolores helped organize farm workers who were invisible to the system. She negotiated contracts. She led boycotts and she helped give workers dignity. And now, decades later, she's still showing leadership because telling the truth is leadership too. This also reminds us that something important about the labor movement and workplace in general: power matters. And when power isn't balanced with accountability, people can be harmed, even in spaces fighting for justice. So I want to open up to the panel, and I especially want to hear from Timmia first. So, Timmia, can you come in so we can have this conversation?
I sure can. I absolutely can. And tell you, this hits just a little bit differently because of what she has described, the feeling you couldn't say no to someone who had authority, someone you admired, someone leading the movement. That's something a lot of women understand, unfortunately. And then the fact that she carried that for decades shows the pressure women often feel to protect the mission, protect the organization, protect everybody else while holding on to their own pain. That takes strength, but it also shows how much women sacrifice. And let's just be honest, women, especially Black and brown women, are often expected to hold everything together, protect the cause, protect the image, protect the men. But moments like this remind us that women's voices matter too. Women's voices matter too. I'm gonna say that one more time. Women's voices matter too. And telling the truth doesn't weaken a movement, it can actually make it stronger.
And from a labor leader perspective, this is important because organizing isn't about power. Organizing is about power, worker power, community power, people power. But we also have to talk about accountability inside the movements in the workplace.
Right.
That's why protections matter. That's why workers need safe spaces to report things. That's why transparency matters, because no one should feel trapped or silenced at work, no matter the industry.
And Tay, look like Reginald has something to say. So come on in here, Reginald.
Well, honestly, Errol, a lot of people are struggling right now with separating legacy from behavior. Dolores's legacy is alive and well, very strong, and she deserves to be celebrated. We also have to recognize that movements are made up of humans. And sometimes those truths are complicated because
Hmm.
humans are very complicated.
Yeah.
And truth, Reggie, is very important, because if a movement stands for justice, it has to be able to face the truth, even the uncomfortable parts. That's how movements evolve and grow stronger.
Okay, David, say it again. Even the uncomfortable parts.
Even the uncomfortable parts.
And I also want to say this before we close this conversation. There are probably people listening right now who have experienced something similar and never felt safe enough to say it out loud. Your
Right.
silence doesn't mean your story doesn't matter. And sometimes when someone like Dolores speaks after a decade, it reminds others that their voices still have value.
Mm.
Yes. And her story is powerful because it tells the full story, not just the victories, but the courage it takes to keep going. And what we're seeing right now is another example of leadership, the courage to really just tell the truth, even after all of these years. And women are not just part of labor history, they helped build it.
Her story isn't about perfection. It's about truth, it's about survival, and it's about making sure the next generation can build something even stronger. And before I close out Tea with Tay today, I want survivors to know we see you, we hear you, we stand with you. If you need help, reach out to your local communities. There are so many resources out there for you. Do not let your struggle be silenced. Do not let your story be silenced. And I'm going to pass it back over to you, Errol.
Thank you so much, Tay. You are listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the listen live option. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Search for CWA Hour of Power. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected, share your thoughts, and join the conversation. Up next, we have the David Marshall with Marshall Minute. Good morning, David.
Good morning, family, and welcome everyone to the Marshall Minute. Now, today we're going to talk about life's basic necessities, stuff like food, shelter, transportation. Now, we all know these things are more expensive today than ever, and all of us feel it. Since 2020, overall prices are up 25% due to inflation. And as of today, with tariffs, market uncertainty, escalating wars, that combines with that inflation to make the perfect storm, making life's basic needs a struggle and even out of reach for many Americans. It can be hard to keep up sometimes, especially given that wage increases are flat and basically non-existent. But there are some steps we can take to help keep up with the high cost of living. And the first thing is to make sure you get a good handle on your expenses. Now, you can do this by creating and sticking to a budget. Set yourself a budget and track your spending. Evaluate what you're spending on necessities and the extras, some of which may have become recurring expenses that you don't need or even enjoy anymore. So, here are some possibilities for the chopping block. Streaming, subscription streaming services, seldom used gym memberships, daily coffee from a coffee shop, or frequent dining out. Because once you get a good grasp on your spending habits, you can move forward with these tips that'll help you cut expenses and stretch your dollars. Next, we'll get up to the groceries and food. Now, I can tell you, when I go to the grocery store, food prices are one area that are particularly noticeable, that we're seeing these increases. Since February 2020, grocery prices have jumped nearly 30%. Certain items cost more and have increased more than others, but there's no way to get around these increases. So it's always a good rule of thumb to keep your produce and pantry well organized so that, you track your food, make sure it doesn't expire. But then look through your fridge and cupboards before you head to the grocery store. That way you don't double up on items that you already have. And when you get to the grocery store, use coupons, double coupons. Buy the private label brands. Use loyalty card points. In the store aisles, look for the cheapest options above or below eye level. That's where the priciest options tend to be. And then also buy in bulk and compare prices of things per ounce, not unit in price. And most importantly, create and design your meals in your meal plan with set ingredients and don't deviate from your shopping list. But another expense that we all take a hit on are high utility costs. Utilities take a big bite out of your monthly budget. The average monthly cost of utility bills in the US is well over $600 a month. Most households spend about $500 a month on essentials like electricity, natural gas, water, and sewer. But when you add the internet, phone, streaming services, that increases to well over $600 per month. So what are some ways that we can improve this, energy efficiency? Well, the first thing to do is request an energy audit. An energy audit can be a productive first step towards lowering utility costs. An inspector can come out and examine your entire home for inefficiencies, such as air leak, poor insulation, and insufficient appliances, and may suggest fixes for them. So check with your energy provider, who may even offer an energy audit for free or at a discount. Then only heat or cool your home when you're there. More than half of the average utility bill goes towards heating and cooling. So turn off the heat or the air when you're not there, because that can make a big impact. And if you have one of the newer programmable thermostats, schedule it to your preferred temperatures only when you're going to be home. And now this is an old school one, and I don't expect a lot of people to do this, but it helps. Unplug items when they're not in use. One of the easiest ways to cut energy costs is to reduce that vampire energy. And that's, even when these are not in use, electronics and small appliances still draw standby power. So unplug your chargers, TV and appliances. Turn off power strips when they're not in use. These savings can add up, and it's better for the environment overall. But then you can also reduce your hot water use. Water heating accounts for about 20% of your home's energy use. Steps to reduce that include using cold water to wash your laundry and insulating your pipes and turning down the resting temperature of your water heater. But another expense that I can tell you everybody on this panel is probably dealing with right now is transportation costs. It's a significant monthly cost for everyone, with car payments, insurance, maintenance, and repairs. And now with the price of gas, this can all add up very, very quickly. So if public transportation is not an option, here are a few ideas that you can save. Reduce your speed when driving. That will burn less gas and get you the most mileage out of your tank. But you also can combine your trips, group your errands and work commute to reduce overall driving time. And when you can, walk, bike, or carpool. Just by doing these small steps, it can make a difference in the long run. So family, let's do our part and keep pace with this crazy cost of living so we can feel more in control in this crazy and unpredicted world. So until next time, this has been the Marshall Minute, where living well is the greatest act of love. Now back to you, Errol.
Now, Marshall, that was very real. And I think what stands out is people aren't imagining this. Life really has gotten more expensive. And there was a report that came out yesterday that the average U.S. rent just hit $3,000 a month. And then they start talking about landlords are expecting tenants to make 3 times that, which is $9,000 a month, $108,000 a year. But the average American makes $51,000 in salary.
Oh, wow. I mean, folks, we feel it every day. And it's frustrating because it's not about overspending. You know, it's just everything is going up. It's not like we're going out buying extra stuff. It's just the stuff that we normally buy to survive has gone up so much that we basically have to cut out all your extracurricular stuff that you like to do. And it definitely is getting out of control. But you know, I'm all about personal accountability and being able to adapt to your situation. And I think you know, the best thing we can do is to control the things we can control.
Right, right, right. And I think that's what really wraps it up, control, because a lot of people feel like everything is out of their hands right now. Everything is out of control. But I think if you can just write it down, and I don't know where I heard this. I think I heard it from a wise man that said this one time. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Right, right. And you
Right.
know what? That's so true. And that's why, you know, focusing on what you control is so important. You know, like you said, just write it down. Write down your budget. Write down your habits, you know, and your planning, because all of those things can make a huge difference.
Right, right. And trust me, it adds up over time as well.
Oh, they really do, because it's not about, see, this is the thing. It's not about being perfect and following all your budgetary rules and stuff, but it's about being consistent. And if you stay consistent, you will see over time that, you know, we can make it through this tough time and come out on top.
Well, there you have it. Thank you so much, David Marshall, with the
Yes,
Marshall
sir.
Minute. You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the listen live option. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Search for CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected, share your thoughts, and join the conversation. All right, now, that was the Marshall Minute, and what you just heard is something everybody's listening can feel. The rising cost of the basic necessities. David did an awesome job with that. Food, housing, transportation, just trying to live is getting more expensive day by day. But here's the question we've really got to ask this morning. As the cost of living goes up, where are the new opportunities for workers to actually keep up? So we got something to discuss here. Is Tay still on this morning? Okay, she
I'm,
probably has. Okay, go ahead, Timmia.
all of what you said is exactly just spot on, because while folks are out here trying to afford the basics, there's a whole new economy being built in real time, and it's centered around artificial intelligence and data centers. Now, when people hear AI, they think about apps like chatbots and automation, but what most people don't see is the infrastructure behind it. We're talking about massive data centers, facilities that store processes and power everything from AI tools to banking systems to social media. And those centers they require land, they
Mm-hmm.
require energy, construction, maintenance, security, skilled labor. So the question becomes, who is really benefiting from this boom? Are these jobs coming into our communities? Are workers being trained and hired for them? Or are we just watching another economic shift happen around us instead of with us? Because we've
Mm-hmm.
all seen this before.
Right.
Industries grow, the money flows, opportunities are created, but not everyone gets access. So it's not accessible to everybody. So today, I think we need to break it down. It'd be a great conversation to have. AI data centers and what this means for workers, for energy, and the future of our communities. I think we should talk about it. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about these data centers. Let's talk about AI. Let's talk about why your power bill might be the next thing to rise if it hasn't already. North Carolina, we're on the map. It's rising. AI, artificial intelligence, chatbots, automation, the quote unquote cloud. But here's the truth. AI does not live in the sky. It lives in massive buildings called data centers. And those buildings are using enormous amounts of water and electricity. They're being built in communities across the country. They're getting tax breaks. They're changing our energy grids. And whether you can feel it or not, it's happening around you. So today I want to ask, who benefits, who's getting paid, or who's paying, and how do we make this a win for workers and communities? Reginald, I think, was that you wanting to say something?
Yeah, I am going to say something. You set the table up for us, and I'm going to say the table is definitely spread. So when people actually say the cloud, what they mean is a warehouse full of servers, massive, huge, massive facilities run by some of the large corporations that are very familiar to us, that I'll let remain nameless for now. These places actually power AI tools, streaming services, financial systems, everything digital. A single large AI focused data center can use as much electricity as 100,000 homes. Get that. One data center can use as much electricity as 100,000 homes and can consume 1 to 5 million, with an M, million gallons of water per day. That's not virtual. That's physical infrastructure. That's the real deal. This is actually happening.
And that water is often drinking quality water. It's the good water used to cool servers in drought prone states. So these states that are already in a drought or drought prone, like Arizona and Texas, that's going to be a serious issue.
So one of the things that we're talking about is they're using quality drinking water. Why they just can't use some Village Creek water, some
Hello.
you know, this is water that has gone through the filtration processes, and now you want to cool these servers down. So something has to be done about it. So when people say AI is just software, no, it is actually industrial.
So I'm gonna bring y'all back to this water. One
Okay.
large data center can use more water annually than 30,000 households. Now, y'all think about that. Several of them clustered in one county. What happens? Water tables dry up, municipal systems are strained, and local rates can increase.
And here's the part we need to unpack. In some communities, especially rural or lower income areas, there's less political power to push back. That raised environmental justice concerns.
You own it.
Agencies like the United States Environmental Protection Agencies have framework to measure environmental burdens. The question is, are those being applied before the facilities are approved?
Well, and let's be clear, not every data center is harmful, but in water stressed regions, it can absolutely compound drought conditions. That's why communities need transparency and caps on groundwater removal.
Let's frame this correctly, because people will absolutely say we're against the data centers, et cetera, et cetera. It's not about us being anti-technology. It's about responsible sitting and accountability. That's what we have to make sure that's going on. We have to be accountable. And let's move to the electricity, because when Timmia was talking, she talked about North Carolina energy rates. She hinted towards that. Even in our cities, right here in the state of Alabama, Alabama Power is up under on the hot seat, I should say, about the cost of electricity. And so the data centers, come on, David.
Well, I was just going to ask you real quick. Well, I want to go back to what you were saying about these data centers, and we're not against them. I would like to see if they had a comparison to how much water these data centers use versus if those was people in there working in that data center. Those was workers.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and diverge and divert on this conversation already. So let's think about it. These centers, they cost millions to build. When they're going up, construction is everywhere. Okay. But then when they close only, or when they're built and when they are up and running, it's only 50 jobs there. Now that's something to think about as well. And you're talking about the electricity use. You're using the data centers are using somewhere around 2 to 4% of total U.S. electricity, and AI growth could double that because everybody's talking about put it in the cloud, put it in the cloud. If you got a whole bunch of pictures, you put it in the cloud. When you save Zooms, you're putting it in the cloud. So it's a lot going on. And Reginald, what is this really going to mean for the communities?
So Errol, back to your point, you're saying that after you've disturbed the community, you've sucked all the water, there's no employment benefit overall for the community?
You have somewhere about 50 to 80 people that are in a data center. And then on top of that, how many of those people that are working in those data centers are hired from the area? Then we can talk about that as well.
That's very interesting, Errol. That seems like a whole nother conversation. But particularly when I think about what it means for a community, if utilities need if utility company need to build new substations or power plants to serve one facility, somebody's going to pay the price for that. So often that cost gets spread across the ratepayers. And I'm going to say the ratepayers, that means me and you, the everyday people.
Right.
So grandma's electric bill might go up so a corporation can power AI servers.
That's the socializing of cost and privatizing of profits. And when companies say we're powered by renewables, sometimes they're buying offsets in another region while the local grid still relies on fossil fuels. That can delay the retirement of coal or gas plants.
And the win-win approach would require that companies start paying full infrastructure costs.
Come on, talk about
it. There's dedicated renewable generation. And then there's no cost shifting to the residential customers. And the Public Utility Commission has oversight of these things.
And that's what I really think about where the workers are being centered energy policy. Because we just can't give the whole kit and caboodle away. So, and I know we kind of started talking about this just a little bit earlier, but let's talk about the jobs. The construction of the data centers and it can mean hundreds of jobs temporarily, but once they're built, you don't have that many. Come on, Tay.
30 to 100 permanent jobs in many cases. That's not nothing, but for billions in tax incentives, communities expect more.
So, and that's where collective power comes in. That's where Communication Workers of America comes in, and various unions. CWA's position on AI isn't to stop it. So to be clear, it isn't to stop it. It's to bargain over implementation. It's to ensure workers share in productivity gains, protect workers from surveillance and automation harm, tie infrastructure investment to labor standards.
And if public money,
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim, because this is what I really want to bring out. We can't stop AI. AI has been here, it's here. We're going to have to wrap it up, put a little bow on it, and make sure it is facilitated correctly. That's what I want to say about that.
Well,
Okay, I'm sorry,
it goes
Tim.
back to, like, when horses and carriages used to be the main source of transportation, and there was an industry of people that built horse carriages. And then when the invention of the car came about, that industry went down, it plummeted. But they also trained those people that used to make the horse carriages to make these cars. And so I think we need to, be on the cusp of 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 how this is deployed and how this is incorporated into our society by having humans, participate in the process so that we can help AI be better.
Absolutely. And that's why there should be project labor agreements, prevailing wage requirements, apprenticeship pipelines, and neutrality agreements so workers can organize. And long-term operation jobs must be living wage jobs, not just minimum wage jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So, David, back to David's point with the analogy with the horse and buggy and the cars, it makes me wonder, it feels like this technology is a little bit different because before we could even grasp and get our arms around what AI truly was and what it truly is and what it truly does, the plants are already there. Everything's already built. It's already in full motion. And it's like, then we're trying to get in it to fully first understand it, then see what our part can be in it. But it's like back to the horse and buggy, the horse has already left the stable. It feels just a little bit different here.
Mm-hmm. And it's all around us. And guys, let me tell you, I really see it now. AI is here now more than ever with me just looking for employment. I am just flabbergasted at how you have to write 50, 1,100,000 different resumes to make sure you have the correct wording. So when you upload your resume, those words that company is looking for, it's on the resume so you can get an interview or get your foot in the door.
Right.
And technology should not mean weaker worker power. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Well, that's how you get robots working for you. I think there has to come a point where we get back to good old fashioned customer service. And like I said last week on the show, I've never been on a chat bot or on hold where I'm dealing with a chat bot and said, "Man, this was a great conversation that I just had with this chat bot." It usually ends with frustration and anger because I didn't get my questions answered. And that's going to be on the responsibility of us to demand services be at a certain level. And I think that's something that only a human can do.
You're absolutely right. Sometimes communities are promised economic revival, but if long-term jobs are minimal and tax abatements are heavy, the return might not be the hype. And this is where
I
we got
wonder
to
how.
stand.
I'm sorry, because I really want to know how much of the coffers are they giving away to these centers?
They're giving away everything. What they say, the arm, the leg, the back, the feet, everything. And
Right,
they're doing it on taxpayers' backs.
right. And I mean, I don't know, maybe. And it's go ahead, Timmia. I'm sorry because I don't want to get too far into this, but I just know we got to wrap this package.
We do, but
And we're here. It's here upon us.
it is upon us. And on another side, in another corner, there's the environmental piece because environmental justice requires cumulative impact reviews. In an area, if an area already has industrial pollution, high asthma rates, and water stress, then adding large-scale infrastructure demands deeper scrutiny. We need to look at this stuff.
Right. And development um, it should not mean displacement or environmental burden either. And then when we and CWA has the environmental justice training classes, and something that we don't want another cancer alley to be formed behind all of this. So maybe let's see, can we wrap this up?
I
How
mean,
can
you
we
say
really
we don't want that, but there was really nothing done about Cancer Alley. It
uh-huh.
just kind of it still exists today. It's still there. There's no closure. There's no true solution. It's kind of that everyone knows it gets tied up in litigation and lawsuits. So it's still there. And this bears some of the same similarities. Of course, we don't know what the long-term effects of these facilities will actually be. But we already
Uh-huh.
know how much energy it's using. We already know the impact on communities, the water tables. We know that, but we don't know the physical harm that is possible out there. Not yet.
Mm-hmm. And then we also know that right in Memphis, Tennessee, there's one that they are dealing with there that has methane gases being released because of the generators that have been placed in the community to run these facilities. So listen, let's try to close this out with some solutions. Um, and I think this is something that we'll probably come back to. It is just to open it up as of right now, and this is something we're going to have to, really be concerned about. That we will probably have to get back to at some point and some time, and go dive into it just a little bit deeper, as well as bring in our environmental justice training into the studio, so we could talk about it with one another. So each of you, give me one key condition for a true win if we're going to make this a win for all.
Well, definitely the first thing that comes to mind are labor standards, enforceable labor standards. Tie public
Okay.
incentives to enforceable labor standards.
And we have to mandate transparent reporting of water and energy use. Protect ratepayers, no cost shifting.
Require environmental justice screening before approval.
And
But David, before you jump in, let me go back to something. I think Timmia said this: protect the ratepayers and no cost shifting. That is the biggest problem right there for the communities, and that is not protecting the ratepayers as well as shifting the burden of cost to the ratepayers. Instead of making the corporations pay it, they want to spread it all around to all of us, and all of us are feeling it. All of us are feeling it at some point in some time. Again, and I think all of us are feeling it with the energy right now, and then on top of the energy, right here in my home state or in my city, we're feeling it also with the waterworks companies.
well,
Well,
another
I don't think you're unique. I mean, it seems to be shifting in every city right now for various reasons, which is a topic for another day with energy.
well,
Okay.
and the folks at the top always shift those cost shifts right to the folks at the bottom. So that's in every industry and every facet of our society. And but one of the things I think we could also do, we need to also invest AI driven profits into the workforce development and into digital equity.
And I'll add this right here, David. Um, Community benefits agreements, legally binding commitments negotiated with the residents. I think that is what a true win looks like. We're looking at clean energy powered, water responsible, union built, living wage options, jobs, no hidden utility hikes, public transparency, community voice at the table, and that's all I'm saying. Those, I think that's what will really make make this a win-win situation for us. Right now, we are having a Coast Guard center come to Birmingham at one of our colleges that sits on 197 acres. It's going to be turned into the Coast Guard Training Center. And my whole thing is, where is the community going to fall with this? Yes, it's being brought here. Yes, it's going to affect the communities. And it's about, I guess, about 3 miles from my home. That's going to affect tax rates, housing taxes, property taxes, I should say, and hopefully it will even make the homes more valuable as well. But my whole concern is, are we going to have a community voice? Is this community going to have a voice? Are they going to be able to have jobs at the center? Are marginalized companies going to be able to uh, to participate in contracts that are coming? So these are things that we need to really be talking about, even with AI and with this center. And most of this stuff really falls on deaf ears, because a lot of times people don't feel that it affects them until it really affects them. Y'all follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I guess I need to get off my soapbox on this one.
Well, no, it's a really good soapbox to be on, Errol, but you're making me take a right turn and down another street. When you say community voice at the table, it makes me wonder. First of all, you'd have to educate your community. You'd have to pull the community together in one common way. And it concerns me that in some communities, as we call them communities, there's no sense of community. So how do you spread the word? How do you tell people that they need to look at their energy bills, that they need to actually come together? Where is the civic meeting? Where is the community meeting? Who's heading this? It concerns me about the state of the community in 2026. And I'll leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you're onto something, though, Reggie. I think that the community part is lost, especially with the day and age of social media and everybody's in their silos that, used to, going to a town hall meeting, going to, a city council meeting, or just being out and about with your neighbors was a common practice. And, that's kind of a lost art form now. And so we just got to figure out ways to get that message out, because I know everybody wants, clean air and clean water. That's something that everybody can agree on. I don't care what your income level is, we can all agree we want clean air and clean water. But at the end of the day, like we said in this segment, companies don't care about all that. They care about profit. And if it means, going into cheaper real estate, going into areas that, to buy cheaper land to do these projects, they're going to do that. But where you find cheaper land is you're going to find people that are going to be vulnerable, to toxins and waste and abuse and being taken advantage of. So we got to really, as a movement, we have to expand our horizon to all folks and get all folks engaged in this process so that they understand what's at stake.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And what we have to realize, the AI is just not a code. It's infrastructure, it's water, it's electricity, it's labor, it's public policy. And the question is not whether AI will expand. The question is, will working people shape how it expands? And really, guys, that's why we organize. That's why we bargain, and that's why we show up. And yes, David, we're gonna have to reach out. I'm sorry, Reginald, we're gonna have to do a better job at reaching out. our cities has to do a better job at reaching out to our communities and informing them of the situations that are going on, because they know about the businesses before they come in, right?
You're right.
As my old pastor would say, I know I'm right. You're listening to KYK 1140 AM in the all new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the listen live option. Tune in live every Thursday, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Search for CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected. Share your thoughts and join the conversation. Well, March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. And so March, it is a time to set aside nationwide to recognize the strength, the contributions, and rights of individuals living with developmental disabilities. First established in 1987 by President Ronald Reagan, this month reminds us that awareness must lead to action, inclusion, and opportunity. And today we are shining a spotlight on progress, real progress that shows what advocacy can achieve. Developmental disabilities affects millions of Americans, yet too many still face barriers in education, employment, healthcare, and access to community life. Awareness is important, but empowerment is transformational. And that's why we are honoring Eric Carpenter Grantham, a powerful advocate whose leadership helped who helped pass groundbreaking legislation in the state of Maryland that strengthens protections and support for individuals with developmental disabilities. His work demonstrates that when advocacy meets action, real change happens. But the impact doesn't stop at Maryland. The CWA Human Rights Department is taking this effort nationwide, bringing the lessons, strategies, and legislative push to state legislatures across the country. Their goal is simply put, but powerful, to ensure that every state recognizes the rights of individuals with developmental disabilities and implements policies that make a tangible difference in communities everywhere. Eric Carpenter Grantham's leadership and the CWA Human Rights Department nationwide advocacy reminds us that progress is possible when voices are amplified, laws reflect lived experiences, and people refuse to accept barriers as permanent. Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month calls on all of us, policymakers, educators, employers, neighbors, to build systems that are accessible by design, not by exception. True inclusion means classrooms that support every child, workplaces that see ability first, and communities that welcome participation and leadership. Because disability does not mean inability. It does not limit purpose. It does not reduce potential. And as we celebrate leaders like Eric Carpenter Grantham and organizations like the CWA Human Rights Department, we also honor the everyday advocates, the parents, the caregivers, the teachers, and self-advocates who push for dignity, respect, and opportunity every single day. Progress happens when awareness turns into action. Progress happens when advocacy meets policy. Progress happens when we refuse to let barriers define the future. So this March, let's commit to building communities where inclusion is the standard, not the exception. Let's continue supporting policies that protect rights and expand access. And let's celebrate the leaders, the advocates, and organizations who are moving us forward, because when we remove barriers, we unlock possibility. And when we unlock possibility, everyone rises. Honoring Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month and the power of advocacy to create lasting across the nation, that's what we do. You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the listen live option. Tune in live every Thursday, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, right here on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected, share your thoughts, and join the conversation. As we come down to the final minutes of the show, an hour is not long enough to be with you, and a week is too long to be away from you. You have been tuned into the CWA Human Rights Hour Power broadcast. I hope something you heard today has inspired you to take action toward creating positive change in the world. Every person has the power to make a difference, no matter how small. And by working together, we can create a world where human rights are respected and valued. So I encourage each of you in the listening audience to reflect on your role in promoting human rights to effect change in your communities and beyond. Know that you're not alone in your quest for a more just and equitable world. When faced with injustice, it can be easy to lose hope and give up. But remember, justice may be slow like the truth, but when it finally comes, it will stand. Until next Thursday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, right here on KYOK 1140 a.m. and the all-new 106.5 FM KYOKradio.org. See you next week.